Good evening guys, I am Ilangovan, onlinepaxi.com, resource person for teaching zoology. So we have started what we call this one histology, the study of tissues. So under this category you know that there are four major types. One, the epithelial tissue, the second one you have just what we call the connective tissues. The third one we have generally the muscle tissues, and finally the nervous tissues. And now we concluded already about the epithelial tissues. Now let's pass on to the second part, just the connective tissue, the second type of tissue found in the case of all the animal cells. Now it is the most abundant tissue. When compared to the epithelial all other types, it is the most abundant tissue, widely distributed tissue, because so it is the one which is responsible for connecting the various organs and organ systems. So it is acting as a link, a connecting link we can say. So it provides support as well as link the different tissues and organs. That is why it is the most abundant tissue, hence the name connective tissue. So its special function of linking actually and supporting other tissues and organs of the body, hence the name connective tissue. And if you take any tissue, what is started the definition? A group of similar cells. But as per the connective tissue is concerned, it is a heterogeneous group of tissue. Heterogeneous. So under this category, some of the tissues normally have similar cells. In most cases, actually the connective tissue is formed of different types of cells. Hence the name given heterogeneous group. Homogeneous, for example, epithelium, formed of similar types of cells. When we are using the word heterogeneous, that refers to tissues which is being formed of actually different types of components. That is why it is called as heterogeneous group of tissues. And they have some characteristics common when compared to, though they are all made up of different components, some characteristics are actually common for all the connective tissues. Number one, so all are mesodermal in origin. Unlike the epithelial tissues, so epithelial tissues are either ectodermal or endodermal or mesodermal in origin. But as per the connective tissue is concerned regarding the origin, all have been developed from the mesoderm. Then, one of the important characteristic features of connective tissue, unlike the epithelial tissue, there you have no matrix at all, there is no ground substance. The cells are closely packed without intercellular spaces. But here there is a ground substance which is of large amount, in which only we have the cells and other components, namely the fibers, are arranged. So in all the connective tissues, we have a large amount of matrix or ground substance, the basic substance on which actually the cells and fibers are suspended. So the main difference is this one between the epithelial and this one, actually having large amount of matrix. Now, as they have large amount of matrix, if you are taking the cells found in that tissue, the cells are widely separated, scattered here and there. They are not closely packed. So we have fewer cells when compared to the epithelial tissues, where we have many number of cells accumulated together to form a tissue. As here the ground substance is matrix and also large in amount, we have only fewer cells. And these fewer cells are widely separated from each other. This is because of the matrix. So we have the base substance in which only fewer number of cells found scattered. And also they are supplied with a large amount of blood vessels. Large number or large amount of blood or large number of blood vessels as well as nerves. But there are certain exceptions, we will see later. In the case of some fibrous connective tissue, we have the blood vessels are lacking. For example, dense fibrous tissue, the blood vessels are absent. That is why I mentioned here except a few. Though many of the tissues under this category are rich supply of blood vessels and nerves, but in some cases, for example, dense fibrous connective tissue, we have only fewer number of blood vessels. And what are the things or what are the different types of actually categories of this connective tissue? And this connective tissue ranges from some ordinary types, actually what we can see, that is simple types, to specialized types. For example, simple types like areolar connective tissue, reticular connective tissue, jelly-like that. These are all simple types. And also we have some specialized types of connective tissue. For example, the bones, the cartilages, even you know that one, the blood, and also the fatty tissue present below the skin, what we call this one, adipose. So anyway, cartilage, bone, just adipose tissue, a kind of connective tissue, blood, a liquid connective tissue or a fluid connective tissue are the specialized types. Ordinary types, general types, we can say connective tissue proper. We can say the general types connective tissue proper, and other types are the specialized tissues, out of which we see that one cartilage and bone, they are the supportive connective tissue. Then blood, the fluid connective tissue, adipose tissue, the fat storing tissue, the fat storing connective tissue. So these are all the specialized tissues in contrast to the normal connective tissues like connective tissue proper, including for example the areolar connective tissue, reticular connective tissue, we are going to see one by one, and also the jelly-like connective tissue and some of the adipose tissue. These are all the specialized tissues. Now in all connective tissues normally we have different types of cells with the 3 different types of fibers altogether. So in all connective tissues except blood, the matrix contains a number of fibers bundled together or scattered separately or in the form of network. But generally speaking, there are 2 different types of fibers based on the chemical composition. For example, they are made up of structural protein, namely collagen. They are called the collagen fibers, or they are made up of elastin substance, a kind of protein. Such fibers are called elastin. Elastin fibers or elastic fibers or yellow fibers like that. So anyway, in all connective tissues there are certain cells which secrete the fibers which give normally strength, firmness to the connective tissue, and such fibers are of 2 types. Some of the fibers are made up of structural proteins, namely the collagen, the most abundant protein in the human body. The most abundant protein in the human body is called collagen. And in some cases we have yellow fibers. So the collagen is normally white in color, and another fiber, what we call this one, elastin, that is yellow in nature, and that fiber is called elastic fiber, made of the protein elastin. So the name of the protein is called elastin, the name of the fiber is called elastic fiber or yellow fiber, and similarly the name of the protein is called collagen. The fiber by which it is actually a component is a collagen fiber or a white fiber. So anyway, in all connective tissues we have 2 different types of fibers and many types of cells. Now what is the role of the fibers? I mentioned already, they provide strength, elasticity and flexibility. So the elastic fibers are highly flexible. The collagen fibers are normally just actually providing strength, inelastic in nature. So the elastic fibers provide elasticity and flexibility, and now the collagen fibers provide strength to this one. So the protein which is normally losing its tension while the person is attaining old age is nothing but the collagen fibers. So the aging process occurs. During the process, what will happen? The white fibers, namely the collagen fibers, lost their strength and then flexibility, lose the tension also. That is why we have the wrinkled face or the wrinkled skin. You'll be studying more in higher classes. Then the ground substance, what I mentioned, that is nothing but the matrix. So what do you mean by ground substance? For example, even on the floor we have the sand on which only we are placing some other, for example the tiles, etc. The basic material on which the cells are suspended. For example, if you are taking blood, the matrix is in the form of plasma, liquid plasma, in which only the various types of blood cells are suspended. The same manner, the ground substance is always called as matrix. It is a polysaccharide, a modified polysaccharide, converted sulfate. And that polysaccharide is nothing but a carbohydrate, a kind of carbohydrate. We study, for example, starch, glycogen, cellulose, like that. This is a polysaccharide containing what we have some sort of amino groups secreted by the cells. The cells are responsible for secreting the fibers as well as, for example, the matrix. Now, let's go to the types of connective tissues. We are given the flow chart about what are the different types of connective tissues. And normally this is based on the nature of the matrix, nature of the fibers present, nature of the what is called the fluid present, whether it is semi-fluid, what is the nature of the tissue fluid, whether it contains large amount, what are the natures of the fibers, what are the natures of the cells, whether the connective tissue is rigid or soft accordingly, what is the nature of the matrix, whether it is in fluid state or semi-solid or solid state. So based on that nature, the connective tissues are grouped under three headings. Number one, the connective tissue proper, the main connective tissue, forming the major. So it is the ultimate one, unspecialized one, a large amount found in the human body, particularly in the case of vertebrates, in all places below the skin, connecting the different organs, etc. And another one, the supportive or skeletal tissue. You know that one, the bones and cartilages. They provide support. Nothing but actually the hard material. That is why they call as a skeletal tissues. It is a specialized tissue. And also the fluid tissue, nothing but the blood. So like a liquid metal, what we call this one, the mercury. The mercury, so all of the metals are normally, you know, that one in solid state. Whereas the blood is, actually whereas the mercury is in liquid state. Likewise, normally the tissues are in solid state. But here, we have the tissues in the form of a fluid. That's why it's called as a fluid tissue. So, an example of blood. So, altogether we have three types: connective tissue proper, supportive or skeletal tissue, and fluid tissue. Now, the first one, connective tissue proper. And let's see first one, the classification. What are the groupings? What are the different groups of connective tissue? So based on the nature of what we have, the rigidity, the flexibility, or also the nature of the fibers formed, we can classify the total connective tissue proper into two categories. One, a loose connective tissue. Here the matrix is large, having large amount of fluid in it, tissue fluid, with a fewer number of cells, and that's why it's called as loose connective tissue. And the second one, dense fibrous tissue, dense fibrous connective tissue. They have only limited amount of, that is the matrix. The matrix is fully packed with fibrous, just what is called the fibers, what we can say, the elastic fibers or collagen fibers, etc. That's why it's called as dense fibrous connective tissue. Now, under the loose connective tissue, based on the nature of the matrix and also the fibers and cells. So we are classifying everything based on the matrix, the fibers and cells. Whether the fibers are more or less, or what is the amount of fluid, tissue fluid present in the matrix, and what is the nature of the matrix, like that. So number one, areolar connective tissue. It has a number of spaces, giving the appearance of what is called air cavities, areolae. Hence the name areolar connective tissue. Number two, reticular connective tissue, reticulum, the network. We have a network of fibers. The fibers are branched. That's why it's called as reticular connective tissue. And jelly-like connective tissue, actually the tissue fluid is normally a semi-solid jelly like the matrix, found mostly during the embryonic condition. For example, the child when it is born, it is covered with only this type of connective tissue, and also the umbilical cord, etc. Then even in our eye, this jelly-like connective tissue is present. What we can have in the eye region, a fluid, we'll see later, vitreous humor. Then adipose connective tissue, the one which stores fat. The one which stores fat. We'll see one by one later. So anyway, the loose connective tissue, the main characteristics, having large amount of matrix. The cells are scattered and widely separated, giving more spaces. Like what we have, the air cavities, areolae. That is why the name is given, areola. Now the dense fibrous connective tissue, limited amount of what we have, the matrix, and more number of fibers packed together, and that is why it's called as a dense fibrous connective tissue. Sandwich we have one based on the nature of the fibers. One type is called white fibrous connective tissue, where you have the matrix contain bundles of white fibers, the collagen fibers. The another type what we have, the yellow elastic tissue, which contains normally yellow fibers, highly elastic in nature. This is based on the nature of the fibers. We have this dense fibrous connective tissue further classified into two. White fibrous and the yellow elastic fibrous tissue, or simply yellow elastic tissue. Now this number one, some of the characteristics of the connective tissue proper. So we have seen what are the different types of connective tissues. You have connective tissue proper, under which only we have loose connective tissue and then fibrous connective tissue. So the connective tissue proper, under which what are the different types? So under this type only, so we have the connective tissues, one connective tissue proper, we have the supportive connective tissue and fluid. So now we have seen the general classification, the flow chart. Now we will go in deep about the connective tissue proper the first time. So where is it found? It is normally found as a covering, what we call this one sheath around most of the tissues. Main function giving strength and firmness and separating actually the organs or the tissues. So strength and then firmness, and also responsible for separating just actually the organs or the tissues, etc. And it's meant for connecting the different tissues or organs mainly. That is why it's actually connective tissue proper, hence the main connective tissue. Proper means main connective tissue. And also facilitate their functions. So the various functions of the different tissues are facilitated by this connective tissue. So they form coverings around all these organs. And again, I mentioned earlier, normally if you're taking the connective tissue, they have a plenty of blood supply, but except certain things, even for example, the dense fibrous connective, that is why I put the word that is except a few. Generally speaking, we have a large amount of blood supply, even in the case of connective tissues generally. Here also I mentioned the same one. And what is their function? So they perform normally three important functions. One, what we call this one, the defense mechanism. Normally the connective, because they have certain cells, for example the macrophages, or for example histiocytes, and they provide defense against infection. That is one. Number two, just they are concerned with the repair of the damaging tissues. So three main functions, mainly fighting infections by way of engulfing the microorganisms that enter into the body, and also the concern with normally the repair of damaged tissues, and also wound healing. So if there is any injury, the closing occurs, the healing of the injury occurs because of this connective tissue. So the three major functions are one, the defense, nothing with the fighting infection, and the second one, the repair of the damaged tissues, and the third one, wound healing process after injury. Then one type of just what is called just the connective tissue problem. Under this only we have the adipose tissue, a fatty tissue, a fatty connective tissue which stores large amount of fat. This is additional function, a specialized function. Generally there is defense, repair, and also just actually healing. In addition, it also performs some specialized function as we are going to see in the case of adipose tissue. There is nothing but the storage of fat. Now in structure, what are the components present in this one? So number one, matrix. The matrix is always found in large amount. In the case of loose connective tissue, we can have actually in the case of any connective tissue proper. So we have a large amount of matrix composed of actually the chemical composition, proteins, polysaccharide, one type of acid, hyaluronic acid, and another salt, a chondroitin sulfate, organic plus the sulfur combined together, chondroitin sulfate, a mixture of organic and inorganic. Organic, just like the bile salt, this one also an organic salt. So we have large amount of matrix. Chemically it contains proteins, polysaccharides, nothing but carbohydrates, one type of acid, hyaluronic acid, and also one salt called chondroitin sulfate. Then, so if you are taking any just mentioned already, just to be generally speaking, either the loose connective tissue or connective tissue proper, anything else, they have three different types of fibers and different kinds of cells. The different types of fibers I mentioned earlier, the collagen fibers, we have elastin fibers and also reticular fibers or reticulate fibers generally. We'll see later about this. Now under this connective tissue proper, loose connective tissue. The name given because it contains large amount of matrix. In this one are found scattered various times. Actually the cells, they are placed wider apart. Large amount of space being present between the cells. That is why it's called as loose connective tissue. And also the matrix is soft in nature. That is why the name is given loose. So it has a very soft and loose matrix. So soft and loose matrix in that sense, having only fewer number of cells and fewer number of fibers. That's why it's called as actually loose connective tissue, because the space between the cells many, and also the matrix is actually soft. The meaning for that one, it contains large amount of tissue fluid. So large amount of tissue fluid, fewer cells and fewer that we have the fibers. Now on the basis on the arrangement of the fibers, on the types of fibers and the cells, we can have the 4 types. The loose connective tissue is broadly classified into 4 types based on the type of fibers and the type of cells formed actually. 1. Areolar connective tissue. Number 2. Reticular connective tissue. Number 3. Jelly-like connective. I have given already these things actually the flow chart. And adipose tissue. These are all the 4 different types of loose. And another one we have that is dense connective tissue, dense fibrous connective tissue. We have the amount of matrix is normally less, more number of fibers. But here we have more amount of matrix with a fewer or less number of fibers. Now let's see one by one the types. Areolar connective. So this is the most abundant one and also a generalized one. The meaning for that one, there is no specialization. That is why given here unspecialized. When I am using the word generalized, it is found all over the body. And also doesn't happen any specialization. So generalized and unspecialized connective tissue. I mentioned earlier most widely distributed. Most widely. That means most abundant in the body. When you are taking the connective tissue, the main connective tissue present in large amount is nothing but areolar connective tissue. Now what is actually the function? So it serves as a framework for epithelium. Just below the epithelial tissues we have the basement membrane, and which we have normally we have a connective tissue even below the skin, the dermis. So epidermis and dermis, and below the skin, that is below the dermis, we have, or below the dermis we can have the connective tissue. It is nothing but areolar connective tissue. So anyway, it supports what is called the epithelium by acting as a framework. Then I mentioned earlier it is present beneath the skin. So almost all the cells are being packed by this areolar connective tissue. Hence it is called as a packing material. Packing material. So packing material found below the skin as supporting framework for the epithelium. So as I mentioned earlier, the matrix is very soft jelly-like with large amount of tissue fluid, and also we have empty looking spaces. But normally there is no empty space, empty looking spaces, looking like empty spaces. That means vast areas found between the cells. That's why the name given areolar. The vast spaces between the cells, apparently they are looking like empty spaces, and such one is called areolae. So that's why the name is given areolar connective tissue. So large amount of matrix, the matrix is very soft, very jelly-like, and also large amount of tissue fluid. And also just looking empty, having apparently we have many empty spaces between the cells that give the appearance of areolae as spaces like. That's why the name is given areolar connective tissue. And now what are the components in the areolar connective tissue? As I mentioned, we have 3 different types of fibers and different types of cells. So the cells may be, for example, adipocyte or histiocyte or macrophages. We have the plasma cells, fibroblasts or mast cells. We'll see one by one what are the types of fibers and what are the types of cells normally found in any connective tissue or in the case of areolar connective tissue. So this is a generalized one. We can take this one, the types of fibers, either in a normal connective tissue or just specifically in a loose connective tissue? Number one, white collagen fibers. So it is named so because it is white in color. It is also called as collagen fibers. The reason for that one, the name of the protein by which it is being made of is collagen. The collagen is normally stretch resistant and inelastic in nature. So these fibers are made of a collagen, a kind of protein. So whenever you have the collagen fibers in a particular area, and that area is normally stiff in nature because the fiber is inelastic in nature. So it is normally stretch resistant. It is not being actually attacked by the stretch. It is not able to what is called actually stretching. It is stretch resistant, not being stretched more. That's why it's said inelastic. The second one, that second type of fibers, we have yellow elastic fibers. The name is given because the fibers are yellow. They are highly elastic in nature and less stretch resistant. Unlike collagen fibers, they are highly elastic. And here the name of the protein found in such elastic fibers is called elastin. So the white fibers contain what we have the collagen protein, the most abundant protein in the human body. That is one of the questions asked. The most abundant protein in human body is nothing but collagen, constituting nearly 8% of the body weight. Constituting nearly 8% of the body weight. Now the yellow fibers, elastin protein, which is highly elastic in nature, less stretch resistant. Now the third one, reticular fibers. These fibers are also made up of protein, what is called collagen. But these fibers are actually thin when compared to the collagen fibers, though they are made up of collagen. And also branched in nature. That's why the name is given reticular fibers. So delicate fibers, thin fibers when compared to the white fibers, but made of protein collagen. And these fibers are highly branched like this, highly branched, giving a reticular appearance. That's why the name is given reticular fibers. So these fibers are unbranched. Either collagen fibers or elastic fibers are unbranched, whereas normally the reticular fibers are highly branched, hence the name is given reticular fibers. Now what are the kinds of cells? Generally speaking, we have 5 different types of cells are found in any connective tissue. Either it is a loose connective tissue or any other types, generally speaking in connective tissue. But most often, as the loose connective tissue contains normally more tissue fluid and less number of fibers and fewer cells, though we have fewer cells but are of different types. Unlike what we have the dense fibrous connective tissue where we have more number of fibers and less number of cells. Here we have less number of fibers and more number of cells, but fewer only the cells as per when compared to the epithelial cells because of large amount of matrix. Now number 1, fibroblast. The cells responsible mainly for the secretion of the fibers or the formation of fibers. So these are all called the fiber forming cells. That means either collagen fibers or yellow fibers or just the reticular fibers are being formed mainly by this fibroblast. And in the just actually connective tissue, any connective tissue or areolar connective tissue or loose connective tissue. So in the case of such tissues, the most important tissue is mast cell. The most important cell is mast cell. I mentioned earlier it is concerned with the defense mechanism. Then also repair. Defense mechanism, repair and wound heal. The mast cells are taking part much actually functions in terms of inflammatory functions. While for example you are bitten by a honeybee or stung by a honeybee or bitten by, say an example of ant. So you may develop some sort of red spots on the body, allergic reactions. The allergic reaction is nothing but actually a defense mechanism developed by the body. And such defense mechanisms are because of release of some chemicals. And such chemicals are released by the mast cells. Most important cells, we will study more this one under inflammatory reactions, under immunology when they are coming up higher classes. So these cells are normally oval in shape. They release substances like histamine, the most important substance, taking part in the dilation of the blood vessels. So once you are stung by honeybee or bitten, for example, centipede or anything else, so red swellings occur here and there, and this is because of the dilation of the blood vessels. So that is the effect of this histamine. It dilates the blood vessels, increases the diameter of the blood vessels at the point where you have a stung by honeybee. And along with this one, there is another substance what is called bradykinin. These are all called the cellular signals. And chemical alarm signals, we can say chemical alarm signals. So the histamine and bradykinin, they dilate the blood vessels, and that is called vasodilation, increasing the diameter of the blood vessel. That is why we have more red reaching that spot. That is why that area becomes more red in color. And another important substance, namely heparin. So in our blood, we have one substance, what is called heparin. So at times of injury, you know that one normally, when a blood is leaking, the blood gets converted into a solid structure. That is called the clot. That process is called clotting or coagulation process. And its main function is normally preventing the leakage of blood or hemorrhage. And that is actually affected only after the release of the blood. But when the blood is inside the blood vessels, there is no clotting, there is no conversion of liquid blood into solid. Why? This is because of the substance heparin. As it prevents the clotting inside the blood vessels, it is called an anticoagulant. You know that one, in blood banks we are storing the blood without being actually coagulated. Coagulation means conversion of liquid blood into a solid one, by adding some what is called the artificial anticoagulants. Now heparin is a natural anticoagulant. We have artificial anticoagulant, like for example sodium citrate or sodium oxalate. They are being added to the blood in blood banks to keep the blood in fluid state. So anyway, the mast cells are more important. They are providing some defense mechanism. So by dilating the blood vessels and also preventing the clotting of blood inside the blood vessels. Type number 3, the histiocytes. They are also called macrophages because they are larger in size. And they have the ability of wandering here and there, wandering phagocytes, wandering cells. And these cells are capable of swallowing the bacteria that enter into the body, just like that white blood corpuscles. Such a phenomenon is called phagocytosis. What is seen already, the pinocytosis and phagocytosis to begin with in the cells in the first chapter. So, and thus helps in defense mechanism, helping the body, acting as soldiers, we can see. So those bacteria and other microorganisms enter the body are being swallowed, and that is because of the histiocyte and macrophages. Then the plasma cells. So these are all nothing but the functional B lymphocytes. If you are taking the blood, there are different types of white blood corpuscles. One type of white blood corpuscle is lymphocyte. Under this category, there are two types. One is B lymphocyte and another one T lymphocytes. Now the B lymphocytes are responsible for the production of antibodies, a protective mechanism that we have or the vertebrates have. So it is a defense mechanism. So we are being protected against the toxic effect of the bacteria. So we have an immune system in the body, and that provides immunity. The word immunity refers to the resistant power against a disease, and that is because of that is mainly the plasma cells. So anyway, all these things, mast cells, histiocytes and plasma cells are taking part in defense mechanism of the body, in immunity. Then the last one, the fat cells. Some of the cells are actually having the ability of storing fat. Such cells are called fat cells or adipocytes. The cells which store fat are called adipocytes, which store fat. So these are all the different types of fibers, altogether 3 different types of fibers, and also we have the different types of cells. This is a generalized one areola. You see that one, the yellow color, this is the matrix, the ground substance, on which are found, you have the fibers. Those fibers which are found in bundles. These fibers are called collagen fibers. And those fibers which are found in singles, they are called elastic fibers. So normally the collagen fibers are found in bundles and the elastic fibers are found in singles. And even some of the fibers are also branched. We could see here some of the fibers are branched, and such fibers are called the reticular fibers or reticulate fibers. And here I represented only a few cells, those cells which are visible. So the name macrophage is given because large, phagocytic, swallowing the microorganism. Now these are all the cells which secrete the different types of fibers, what we have, the collagen fibers, the elastic fibers, then also the reticular fibers. So in between which you have the yellow colored substance. You see that when the cells are not closely packed, you can see the distance between the cells. So large space being present between two cells. That is why it's called as a connective tissue, loose connective tissue, having large amount of matrix, large amount of tissue fluid, fewer number of cells, and also fewer number of fibers. That's why it's normally elastic and forming a covering all over the body of different types of organs. Now reticular connective, that is the second type. Here in this one, and the name implies reticulum in the form of network. We have also, as in the case of loose connective tissue, it's the second type. That is why it also contains large amount of the matrix, large amount of tissue fluid, but the fibers are branched, and that too there is actually the collagen fibers. So normally the reticulate fibers are made up of collagen. The meaning for reticulation, branching, network, branched to form a network or meshwork. So here it contains large amount of matrix, large amount of fluid, fewer number of cells, and delicate reticular fibers. Those fibers which are branched. And the cells are called the reticulate cells because they are found normally just along with the reticular fibers, some of branched cells. And what is their actually role? Where are they found? See the blood capillaries and nerves. They are being supported by this reticular connective tissue. Even in the case of, for example, basement membrane, also a membrane on which the epithelial cells are placed, and the red bone marrow, yellow bone marrow conserved. We have a marrow. The meaning for marrow are substance that normally fills the cavity of the bones. That is called as a marrow, hence called as a bone marrow. So we have two types of bone marrow. One is called the red bone marrow, and the one what we have the yellow bone marrow. The red bone marrow is formed of this reticular connective tissue. The yellow bone marrow is formed of adipose connective tissue. So here it is formed of red bone marrow. So the red bone marrow is supported by reticular connective tissue. The basement membrane is supported, and also the capillaries, the small blood vessels, the minute blood vessels, and the nerves also supported by this type of connective tissue. Now here is the diagram. You see that one, the reticular connective tissue. See, in the reticular connective tissue we have a number of cells. We have just, I mentioned this, lymphocytes also formed. The cells here I mentioned the reticular cells because they are branched, having some branches. And these fibers, you see that one reticular fibers because they are branched. So the cells are reticular because they have some branches. And also we have the reticular fibers. You see that one, this part is a large matrix. And in addition, fewer lymphocytes also form the reticular connective tissue. That is nothing but one type of WBC, the smallest one responsible for giving what is called immunity power. The same one here, this is the diagrammatic one and this is the real one. So the collagen fiber we have, these are all the collagen fibers. Then also we have few elastic fibers, not many, a few elastic fibers, and also we have the fibroblast cells or the nucleus. This is what we have, the reticula. The name is given because the fibers are highly branched. Now the third type of actually loose connective tissue, jelly-like connective tissue, because the matrix is jelly-like. Large amount of matrix is the large amount of fluid. So the jelly-like, whenever we say that is actually jelly-like, it is not in fluid state, not in solid state, but in semi-fluid state. The matrix is in semi-fluid, jelly-like. That's why the name is given as jelly-like connective tissue. And here we have the reticulate fibers made of collagen. Mostly we have reticulate fibers along with the cells, different types of cells. And what is the first type of connective tissue formed at times of what we call the embryonic development when the child is attaining maturity? So the first type of connective tissue that is developed in the human embryo is nothing but this type of connective tissue, jelly connective tissue or jelly-like connective tissue. So this is the first formed connective tissue. So we have different types of connective tissues. All the connective tissues are formed to begin with as only just jelly-like connective tissue. Later on only differentiate into different types of connective tissues. To begin with, all connective tissues appear in the body as jelly-like, later transformed into different types of connective tissues. Now, you have one structure connecting the mother's uterus body, namely the placenta, to the fetus, through which only the nutrients, oxygen are being supplied from mother to the developing embryo, what we call zone the fetus. And similarly from the embryo or fetus, the waste materials are being removed away. That is because of what we call this one, the umbilical cord, a connector between the mother and the fetus, through which only the materials are transported to the fetus. And that that umbilical cord at the time of birth is formed of mainly umbilical cord. That is being cut, you know that one. So the umbilical cord at times of birth contains what we have is loose connective tissue, particularly jelly-like. Then in the case of adult, what we have in human body, in the eye region, if you are taking the eye, so we have the lens in front, and just again there are two cavities. This is the posterior cavity and this is the anterior cavity. A cavity in front of the lens and a cavity behind the lens. So this cavity in front of the lens contains a fluid, what is called aqueous humor. Similarly, the cavity formed behind the lens, this area, so this is one, and that contains, actually there is a cavity posterior chamber. That chamber contains a fluid, what we call this one, the vitreous humor. The vitreous humor contains actually this type of connective tissue. So it is normally jelly-like the vitreous humor, responsible for maintaining the shape of the ball, shape of the eyeball or ball, and that one contains this jelly-like connective tissue. So anyway, it is a first formed connective tissue in all the embryos. It is formed in the umbilical cord at the time of birth, and in the case of adults, it is being represented by the vitreous humor of the eye. Now the fourth type, the last type, adipose tissue. So number one, you have what we call loose connective tissue, and in this category we have studied number one, number two, number three. Now the fourth one, adipose connective tissue. So as the name implies, normally whenever you are using the word adipose, that refers to the fat. So when a cell stores fat, so it is concerned with mainly storage. That is why it is called as a storage form of connective tissue, as it stores fat. The cells are normally called as the fat cells or adipocytes. The tissue is called adipose tissue. The cells are called adipocytes. The common name for this one, fat cells. So what is it actually function? So they are performing mainly three functions we can see. So insulation, just present below the skin, it is insulating the body and providing actually protection against the blows, and also protection against the loss of heat or just the gain of heat. Number two, it is acting as a cushion. So as it is acting as a shock absorbing structure, any blows being actually absorbed, that is a shock. When you are falling down, that is a shock. And from that shock you are being protected by what is called this tissue. That is why it is called as a cushion. And also we are getting energy. Suppose you are taking more amount of food, carbohydrates, the excess of food of carbohydrate gets converted and being stored in a tissue, what is called the adipose tissue, in the form of fat. So once you are starving, for example, if you are not eating, at times what will happen, we have the energy reserve in the body. The energy reserve is in the form of what is called the fat. So it provides energy not only during starvation, for the whole life. That's why it's called a long-term energy reserve. So it acts as a long-term energy reserve insulates the body and also acting as a cushion, providing just protection against the shock absorbing cushion. Now this is one. So storage form actually concerned with the storage of fat, functions cushioning the body, storing the energy, and also insulating, covering the body, that is being present below the skin as a shock absorber against blows, and also preventing the loss of heat, the gain of heat. Just that is why it's called as an insulator. Now in the case of aquatic mammal, for example, the whales, you know that one. So it is about more than 1,000 tons, more than 30 meters long. So the huge animal is floating. How is it possible? Know that one, when you are dropping an oil, you are dropping an oil particle, it is floating. And likewise, when you are just adding just a piece of fat to water, it is floating on the surface because the specific gravity is less than that of water. That's why it's floating. Likewise, a huge animal whale is floating on water. That is what we call this one, the floating effect. What we have, the buoyancy. The floating effect is otherwise called buoyancy. And how does the animal float? Such a huge body is floating. This is because of the presence of a thick layer of fat below the skin, a kind of adipose tissue. As it is found below the skin, it is called a subcutaneous tissue. It is called subcutaneous tissue. That is the one which provides or confers buoyancy to the animal so that the animal can float without being sunk in water, without being submerged in water. The name of the fat, the layer found below the skin, just as it is found below the skin, it is called subcutaneous connective tissue. And this one is called as blood whale. It's found in the case of whale, such a huge animal. Even the case of blue whale, the largest animal, you know that what? A blue whale. So the fat body normally found below the skin about more than 1 foot in thickness. And such a huge fat layer formed by this adipose tissue provides opportunity for the animal to float on the surface of water. And I mentioned earlier, we have the red bone marrow is made up of reticular connective tissue, and whereas this yellow bone marrow, the one which is found in the cavity of the bone, we have the red bone marrow found at the tips of the bones, at the ends of the bones. Then the yellow bone marrow is found in the cavity, that is the shaft of the bone, and the yellow bone marrow is made up of mainly adipose tissue. That is why while we are eating that part, after cooking just from that meat, it's delicious. They are also just fatty in nature, and that is because of the high amount of fat. So don't forget, the yellow bone marrow is made up of adipose tissue. The red bone marrow is made up of reticular connective tissue. Then we have number of cells. I mentioned just what we have mentioned, that is adipocyte or mast cells or histiocytes. Out of all the cells found in any connective tissue, now these adipocytes are the largest of all connective tissue cells. The reason for that one, the cell is filled with a large amount of fat, fully laden with the fat. So we have the mast cells, histiocytes, macrophages, plasma cells, fibroblasts. Of all these cells of the connective tissue, it is the largest one as it contains large amount of fat with it. And normally the fat cells are actually provided support, strength, by the reticular and collagen fibers. They are surrounded by reticular and collagen fibers. The network of fibers made up actually collagen. Again the unbranched fibers, collagen fibers. And they are richly supplied with blood vessels and nerves. So we have large amount of blood capillaries also in adipose connective tissue. Now here is a diagram. You see that one, to begin with, the cell is very small, but you see the cell is somewhat larger. This is one cell having the nucleus. So the cell is large. Now this is the plasma membrane. Here you see that one, this is the nucleus of the cell, and this is the plasma membrane. And the lipid droplet normally occupies the whole cell. That is where the cells become larger. So more and more fat is added to the cell adipocyte. So these cells have normally less number of fibers, very least number of fibers, because the cells are larger, occupying the whole matrix due to the storage of fat. You'll see another diagram. Now if you're taking the adipose tissue, there are two different types of adipose tissue. One is white in color, another one is brown in color. What is the reason for white nature? The white adipose tissue normally having fewer blood capillaries than the red bone marrow, what we have the brown adipose tissue. See, these are all actually cytoplasmic rim of the adipocytes. Remember, there is a marginal one, and surrounding this one we have the plasma membrane. And a small vacuole to begin with, richly stored with or enriched with the fatty substance. That is why the cells become larger and larger. So vacuoles occupied by the lipid droplets, so that it becomes larger. But the blood capillaries is very fewer in number. That is why it is white in color. So in contrast to this white adipose tissue, we have a what we call this one a brown adipose tissue. So here I represented both. So this part after this one, we have the white adipose tissue. The remaining part is brown adipose tissue. So the darkly stained region is a brown and this is a white. So you see that one here we have, this is the white adipose tissue, this part. I represented both together. Where you have only fewer number of capillaries, the blood capillary. But this one, see that one, this is a brown adipose tissue. So we have many capillaries in it, more blood supply. That is why it gives brown color. So this is based on the presence and absence of blood capillaries. When you have more number of blood capillaries, ultimately it becomes brown. When you have fewer or less number of blood capillaries, normally it is white in color. So accordingly, we can just classify the fat also into white fat and then red fat. So we have here brown adipose tissue and white adipose tissue. This is because of the lack of, and based on the color of this adipose tissue, we can have two types of fat. One is brown fat, another one just the white fat. Now how can you differentiate the brown and that is the white fat? See, normally when we are asking one question, suppose a child of 3 years or 1 year, the newborn child and newborn baby, and a 40-year-old, just a person, and both are reaching hilly areas where the climatic condition is very cool. Who feels better? Either the child, that is a newborn, or the old man of 40 years. So here, a child can feel better when compared to what we have, that is the adult person. The reason for that one, reason number one is C, the white fat. So in the case of adult, we have white fat in the body. So it occurs in adults. But in the case of newborn babies, the nature of the fat is normally brown because the fat contains or the fat cells. I mentioned the second one, I already replied. White in color because of fewer blood capillaries. Brown in color because of large supply of blood capillaries, already mentioned while just I showed the diagram, the pictures. So, and normally the white fat acts as a long-term energy reserve, providing energy gradually for a person. But in the case of brown fat, it's very active. The reason for that, the cells are very active. How? Metabolically very active. So they undergo oxidation ready to release energy. So that is why they release more amount of energy than the white fat. White fat releases energy gradually for a long term. And the brown fat releases energy all of a sudden, quickly. And mainly for the child. It needs energy more and more. That is why the energy level in newborn baby is higher. The heat is higher. That is why it can feel better. It feels better in a climatic condition where you have chill weather, but not this white fat contained in the case of adult person. So these are all the main differences between white fat and brown fat. White fat occurs in the case of adult and that one in the case of that is newborn babies. And this is because of fewer blood capillaries and that one is because of large supply blood capillaries. The third one, it is a long-term energy reserve, releasing energy slowly, but the brown fat cells are there very active metabolically, releasing the energy all of a sudden. That is a need for a newborn baby, not only for just actually adjusting the climatic conditions but also for growth. Now the second type, dense fibrous connective tissue. So under the just actually connective tissue proper, there are two types, loose connective tissue and the dense connective. Under the loose connective tissue we have completed the four types, dense fibrous connective. The name itself given the answer. So it contains normally the matrix. The matrix is very dense, number one. And number two, large number of collagen fibers, bundles of collagen fibers are found packed within this dense matrix. As the fibers are more in number, we have fewer cells. As you have normally the matrix is compacted with the fibers. The amount of tissue fluid is also little. So dense matrix packed with collagen fibers, more number of collagen fibers, fewer cells, and also actually very little tissue fluid. That is why it becomes somewhat rigid when compared to the loose connective tissue. Less matrix, fewer cells, more fibers, and just actually less tissue fluid. If it is the tissue fluid, then automatically it becomes normally soft in nature. Now what are the two different types of dense fibrous connective tissue as given in the flow chart? Number one, white fibrous tissue, the second one, yellow elastic tissue. This is based on the nature of the fibers possessed by that one. The name itself implies that one, the first one contains bundles of collagen fibers. The second one contains actually the yellow fibers. The unbranched thin fibers, delicate fibers made up of elastin protein. Now we see that one dense fibrous connective tissue. Here you cannot see the matrix because the matrix is fully packed with the collagen fibers. And the fibers are secreted by the fibroblast. What here represents the black spot is nothing but the nucleus of the fibroblast. So we have bundles of collagen fibers packed together. Now the white fibrous connective tissue again divided into two types based on the arrangement of fibers. One is regular type, another one irregular type. So in the case of irregular type, the fibers are irregularly arranged. And in the case of regular type, the fibers are arranged regularly. There is no proper arrangement here, proper arrangement of fibers. The best examples for regular type, tendons and ligaments. Tendons and ligaments are the two best examples for regular type. So, in the case of white fibrous connective, what I mentioned, actually it is less vascular. That is why I mentioned except a few, the blood supply is actually more. So, and the number of cells less. So, more fibers, less number of cells, less amount of blood supply. And I mentioned already in the case of dense fibers, we have only one type of fibers, namely the collagen fibers made up of collagen protein, which is inelastic nature, so it is inextensible. And also I mentioned earlier stretch resistance. Now irregular type. And the name implies, you see that one here, the collagen fibers are irregularly arranged in several diagrams. So the fibers show irregular pattern. Where are they formed? It forms a fibrous covering of bones and cartilage. The bones and cartilages are surrounded externally by some membranes called as this one, the dense fibrous connective tissue. And also, just below the dermis, the strong lowermost layer of the dermis is also made up of the type of this irregular type. And we have the brain. The brain is surrounded by some protective coverings, three membranous coverings, what are called as meninges. There also we have. Then the heart is covered by a membrane, pericardium. And also we have the walls, bicuspid and tricuspid walls in the heart. And these walls also made up of this type of connective tissue. So membranous coverings of the brain, the heart, the walls of the heart, and also the lowermost layer of the dermis, and also covering of bones and cartilages, we have this type. Now regular type. So in the case of regular type, I mentioned already here that collagen fibers are arranged parallel to one another in the direction of stretch. They are parallel to one another, so regularly arranged. So I mentioned there are two different types. One, we have the tendons, very important question, and also ligaments. What is the difference between tendons and ligaments? So the tendons normally made up of dense fibrous connective tissue, the regular type. A tendon is the one which connects a muscle to a bone. You see that one? I mentioned this arrow mark. So this is a muscle, this is a joint between two bones. Here a muscle is connected to the bone, and this one is called erythrosis actually. Endosis, we can see endosis or erythrosis. And so endosis will take as per the diagram. So the muscle is connected to the bone by tendons. Then what about the ligaments? You see, this is the ligament. A ligament is a dense fibrous connective tissue, a regular type, connecting two bones, bone number 1 and bone number 2. That's the main difference between tendons and ligaments. Tendons connect muscles to the bones, and ligaments connect actually bones, one bone to another bone, but both are dense fibrous connective tissue, innate dense fibrous connective tissue. So anyway, this is very important regarding the tendons and ligaments. And also we have fascia, another one, F-A-S-C-I-A-E. And this is the one, another connective tissue that connects a muscle with another muscle. Actually the one which connects one muscle with another muscle. So tendons and ligaments, we have in our syllabus. So tendons are structures, dense fibrous connective tissue connecting actually a muscle to a bone. The the strongest tendon in our body is the one which connects the calf muscle to the heel, the Achilles tendon in the foot region. That's the strongest tendon. The ligaments attach one bone to another. So with this I conclude about just actually the connective tissue proper. What are the different types of connective tissue proper? And we will pass on to the next one later, the next class.